is not going anywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
They talk about us, we'll talk about them. It's, don't change the rules. Never change the rules.
Yeah.
But that's really kind of the go forward with all this. You have to like set your things in stone. Everybody abide by it.
Yeah, totally.
Works out.
We've all gone through ups and downs for sure.
Well, that's cool. So 4 years you guys have been here.
Just Scott and I. So the plant has been since we talked about 2017, 2018. And Remy has been a through line through the whole thing. We had another partner, but there's 3 of us now.
Oh, okay, so Remy's still involved.
Remy's still involved, and he actually was here earlier, but he had to pick up his kids actually now, so he's not here at this hour. He's still the guy who kind of knows the systems better than anyone.
Sure.
Because he built them all pretty much.
Tell him we said hi. We haven't seen him in a long time.
What's that? Oh, yeah, of course.
yeah.
Yeah. No, I know he wanted to be here too, because I know Chad reached out to him. I know like so many folks he met in the early days. So, but yeah, no, I mean, I don't really know what the answer is, but that is the thing to me that we have to try to get the word out about.
The local.
About support local.
Yeah.
Well, even if it's local, it doesn't have to be
Regional.
in your town, but
That's
like
right.
in your region.
Yeah.
Where we're not sniping from each other, because that's the worst. It's
That's
like
right.
everybody goes to the bottom and goes to the broker or to the super cheap overseas company, but then they don't. But like the ones who want to stay local, then I'm taking them from you.
That's right.
Or that's not the solution, obviously. And there's not enough market share there to do it anyway.
Yeah, I guess from the plant point of view, and you guys might even have this maybe more so on the studio side, because you're really locked into a location. They have to physically be there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, just as much awareness, I think it's built into your name, right?
Yeah,
New Orleans,
of course.
right?
Yeah.
So the regionality is kind of built in, but it's also like, how do you engage with them in a way that's like, hey, we're Louisiana. This is what we do. This is why we do it, and just show that, and really then make awareness around. If you can't do that, there's probably a problem. Right. So the companies that are literally not saying how they make it or what they're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, if a client hits us with a problem, I just say, here's where it was cut. Here's where it was played.
Yeah.
Here's who the printer is. You know.
Transparency.
100%. And they're not even asking.
Yeah.
Right. But they're like, here's my timeline. I can't believe these things happen, which is very regular, right? Something happens.
Something
I say, I hear you, right? Or we say, I hear you. We hear you, but here's how the chain really works. And these are people that are, high-end craftsmen at their job. This is all they do.
Sure.
And so if the cutting was 2 days slower than you hoped it could have been, it could affect everything by 6 days, because then it was the weekend, there's shipping and all this kind of stuff. And usually if you're open like that, most clients are pretty good with whatever you tell them.
Oh,
of course, it's always back on the plant to overnight ship it and lose all that money.
Yeah.
Right.
But back to regionality too, like most of who we work with are independent artists or whatever, guitar players, drummers, singers, and they tend to care about where their guitar is made, where their amp is made, where the pedals are made. They want the backstory there. So I always just try to like connect the dots with them. You know what I mean? On like, well, you're gonna get your record pressed, and they're like, I don't know where it's gonna get pressed. Like, well, let's find out. Let's research it. Where are you located? You know what I mean? We usually just send them the plants that are closest to them. Check this out. You know what I mean? Start there. And they'll see a price differential, but there's always that. It's like, how do you want to spend your money? Do you shop local? Do you not? So
yeah, it's hard to make the case sometimes, I think, for people on a bottom line, depending on if they're like a big label or whatever. I think the individuals, that's who we really see. We see so much of the folks who might not have made a record except they knew they could come here. Maybe that's the same with you guys. It's all abstract until they can come to the studio and cut it, or they can come here and see it pressed. So I think that is like obviously the thing that we always have that anchors us. But, a lot of times they're pressing 100, 300, 500 records. Obviously, we're keeping the machines going. We were running 24 hours too, but we stopped because that was totally insane. So we run 7 days a week, 2 shifts, and that's like,
huge.
I mean, it's a lot, so we got to keep it going. I mean, we could cut it down, but actually then other days we need to be running 24 hours again. And
Right.
So, but no, anyway, and I think it's like making those case to the bigger labels. And a lot of them are trying to do right. I think it's the really big ones who just mostly take brokers and things like that.
Yeah, so, I think the price sensitivity, we were talking a little bit earlier, Brice, about just price sensitivity and the local artists, specifically, or regional artists. It's hard to justify, hey, it's gonna cost you $700, $800 more, right? But really, when you look at it per unit, maybe it's 20 cents, maybe it's whatever. But I think the big thing that happens is the brokers, they eat the 20% or the 20 cents, right? And then they're eating even more than that off of an overseas plant that's massive and that none of us can compete with. So we think of it's like good in, good out. So they're not throughout the chain. We talked about, you know, you have the cutters who do this every day. This is what they do, right? And their name is based on, hey, I do really good work. So it's every cut matters to them.
Yeah, of course.
Same thing with the plating, same thing with the printers. When it's vertically integrated within a large company, that accountability is not there, right? So you have maybe somebody's cutting and they're just like, it's their 9 to 5. So they're not so worried about the depth of the groove having great bass, and that they're so worried about, you know, the frequency range being so great that's going to play high end. They're worried that it doesn't skip and make any problems for the bosses. So I need to make it as a computer. And we are a digital version of vinyl. That's not what this is.
Yeah.
So
when you deal with shipping overseas, you like flip it around, you know, it's like records are heavy, buy closer to you, the shipping cost is less. But we've seen it where the records come overseas here, and they really do kind of push you on. You know, you may not, like, there's a manufacturing defect, okay, but it's the gray area gets wider because you've got the records. You know what I mean? So sometimes we phrase it like it's an insurance policy. You may pay a little bit more, but if you don't like something, it's easier to make it right.
That's good.
Our
You know
rep
what I mean?
is only on the fact that we're going to fix it. You know
And
what I
people
mean?
understand insurance. Like you pay a little bit more, but then you know what I mean? You know, that's our cutting rate. We could be a lot less, but we're a little bit more. So if someone wants something done, we can do it for free. You know what I mean? It's kind of built in, and we just, you know, that all the good jobs kind of pay for the ones that need to be redone because of that gray area. Not, I mean, if it's wrong, we fix it no matter what. But that gray area.
No, totally.
I was going to tell you, I was going to say something earlier. We're talking about just the association and the kind of the why it exists, right? So I know you haven't been part of some conversations. It's really, this was the conversation back in 2019. We were already having this conversation. And it was in Los Angeles, and it was after a Making Vinyl conference, and we were on the beach just having, and it was, you know, we had printers there, we had cutting, we had plating, we had pressing plants, and it was, and the PVC compounders, and everybody pretty much had the same issues, right? And we're like, we should be talking about this more. We should be having these conversations more. And that's really all it was. It was like an email thread that turned into a meeting at 1979, like not even like a month later. And it was always surprising how many people came together and just said, hey, we should be talking about these things more. Because if all you do is you come away with one nugget, and if you get 5 nuggets, it's unbelievable. Out of a day's worth of talking or 2 days, you know, you kind of do what you need to do.
Do you guys feel like from those convos you've been able to do that stuff? Because I'm not saying you haven't. I don't know, actually. And I'm just outside of it totally. And that's like, or I feel like we're mostly outside of it, except for a few little plants that we're cool with. So do you guys feel like, though, that
there's been a lot of there's been a lot of progress. So it's interesting when you do any kind of organization around, so you have to be sensitive, everybody's their own thing. You're your own thing, you're your own thing, we're our own thing, right? And we don't want to infringe upon that, so we set the rules up, hey, nobody's infringing upon anything, nobody's going to have a conversation that we're going to price fix and we're going to figure out competition to do this, right? So there's your baseline 1. 2 is what are the most common problems? And we identified, I think even the first day, we identified like 8 or 10.
Right.
And then you say, okay, that's great. What are like 3 we can actually do, right? And so, and every year we kind of just keep marking things off the list. So, you know, QC manuals that we provided to everybody in the membership. Press operator manual coming a little bit later this year, and that's across multiple machines. Like, what are the best ways to be able to train new operators, or even operators that maybe have different machines that it's their own little quirks only, but what are kind of the best practices. Lots of things on, like, we go to Washington a couple times a year and make sure that nothing happens from the legislation for PVC that's going to crush us all at some level that we weren't aware of.
And I think just having the twice-a-year meetings that we have in person, where you've got people from 40 or 50 different organizations doing all different things, and sometimes doing organized presentations. Like, there was a really nice one in Orlando in December about lean manufacturing, because I think a lot of people go into this and they don't have a manufacturing background. And I mean, I don't even do manufacturing, and I was like, oh wow, I took some nuggets out of it of just how to like smoothly run a business and manage people and all of that, which a lot of these, you know, plants that came up super small, and maybe we're just 2 people and now they have 10 or 15 employees, like it's not something that a lot of us know about. So just that chance to teach each other things and to have the conversations about what's going on is really invaluable, I think.
Well, and the 4 parts of making a record are vinyl mastering, electroplating, pressing, and print. And we use VRMA in the onset to showcase what everyone does. So there's mutual understanding, and understanding breeds respect. And then troubleshooting, right? So, I mean, a lot of people at that first meeting had been ordering lacquers from us and electroplating from us for years and never seen it done, never been in the room. So we got to walk them through the process, you know, like, have you seen lacquers been cut before, for instance?
Actually, maybe not in person.
Yeah, and have you seen electroplating? I'm not
definitely not seen electroplating.
Yeah, exactly, and to see it and say, wow, that takes 3 hours? Do you know what I mean? Because we found, like, our clients, you're standing next to a press all day long, 7 days a week, and records are coming off every 50 seconds. You might subconsciously think that's how stampers are made. But it takes a lot longer, so that, you know what I mean? So you just have a little bit of, like, understanding, you know? So kind of breaking those silos down, you know?
The two places that I see that I don't get, because I feel like I don't even understand you. I mean, I understand what your business is, but I don't know how you got, you know, like there's more of you, right? I think than there are of pressing plants, right? Aren't there more cutters, or not really anymore?
Oh, absolutely not. No.
I used to be, but not now.
Oh, really? You know, maybe I just hear about, like, I do randomly hear about different ones that I don't know about, but, you know, we kind of, I think a lot of us have sort of, we use certain people, we use them, like, we've used you guys in the past, but not recently. In fact, I don't remember if we ever used you guys for lacquers, actually. We always used you for electroplating back in the day. But now, so I think a lot of us dial into maybe one cutter or whatever, and then clients bring them. But print, which you mentioned, you know, most of our print comes from out of the country, which obviously we're in a moment of whether that's going to be a challenge. And then obviously all of our compound that I'm aware of right now that we can stand on and use is coming from overseas, right? I know there was some U.S., but personally we didn't have, unfortunately, good luck with that, so we don't use anything U.S. made.
Yeah, and there's going to be there's like a multi-million-dollar purchasing and acquisition of like a massive PVC compounder in the States, but it's going to be owned by the one large provider that's already vertically integrated, so that kind of takes them out of the equation too, which is always on purpose, right?
So, but it's going to be a U.S.-based PVC manufacturer, but the parent company is not U.S. based.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Yeah. That does.
Oh, what?
Yeah.